What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about 4 things that Mafia, the old country, should learn from the past Mafia games. So starting with number 1, which is tightening up stealth. Now, this is something I thought of while, currently playing Mafia 3, even behind the scenes here. So that's something that I think all 3 of these games can have in common. And again, even though Mafia 3 does it differently, going back to its roots for old country can still learn from all of them. So stealth has always been interesting in these games, right? Your character, no matter who you are, right? Lincoln, Tommy, Vito, they always move in a very stiff way. Now, the range of stiffness has been changed from game to game, and I think generally it's gotten closer to like modern day, just how you expect a character to feel, right? So when it comes to Enzo, I don't know, because this is obviously actually even earlier than any of these games. So we're going back to a time, and we've talked about with car driving, where it's okay, you can probably expect handling more like Mafia 1 versus even Mafia 3, even though 3 is a newer game, releasing. When it comes to stealth, I guess what I'm talking about personally is the AI's ability to detect you. Mafia 3 really stands out to me because you could do stealth in any of these games, but in 3, I feel like there's way more enemies. Obviously, there are 100 times the encounters in Mafia 3. I just feel like the range of when enemies can see you mixed in with the stiffness, right? I think that's a Mafia thing because your character is always so stiff. That's it plays a part in how you try to get behind a person or plan out a route or something like that and then take them out. And then if somebody is within the area, I just find they see you too often. It's something that I kind of spotted in Mafia the Old Country, the gameplay clip that they showed, where it doesn't seem to be that way. So I'm actually proud to report that, this is something that I actually think they are going to improve on. But it could be a little thing, but I mean, it depends on how much you stealth, right? I just feel stealth is too sensitive in really all of the Mafia games, but especially 3. But I think it's 3 because there's so many enemies and there's so many times you do it. So what I would is just tone it down a little bit, give us a little bit of freedom to be able to take out enemies the way we want to. And, a part of that is, hey, if we want to stealth through the entire area, we should be able to. And I mean, I'm not saying it needs to be a cakewalk. It shouldn't be, but at the same time, it shouldn't be if an enemy is way down the line. Oftentimes in games, enemies can't see you too far away. So hopefully we can go into that with the old country. Number 2 is the continued focus on the story and characters. So here's a positive, with all 3 of the games, and something that I've stressed so many times in videos talking about Mafia and the old country. Focus on what you're good at. The games are good at a lot of things, but they do some things definitely better than others. And the focus, again, go to Mafia 3, go to Mafia 2, go to Mafia 1. See, 1 and 2 are much more structured. They're much more linear. They focus so much on Tommy and then Vito and the characters and the build-up of your life, entering the mob. And honestly, credit to Mafia 3, when they go for it and when they have story moments, it's also awesome, including the DLCs. The DLCs to 3 are freaking awesome. So whenever the games have tried to do story and characters, they've always done it. 3, I think, just had too much going on. 1 and 2 more focused, on those elements. So when you look at the old country, again, going back to those roots, it's not going to be a 30, 40-hour game. This is a smaller thing. You focus on Enzo, you focus on the setting, you focus on really making us feel like we're there. A lot of things go into that, right? Handling of weapons and cars and things like that, the scenery and whatnot, in terms of visuals, right? But you really got to focus on those story and characters and just keep, I would say, the high level that they've always had. I really think Lincoln is very, very solid. Vito, Tommy, all of them are so good. So let's just keep that rolling for the old country. Okay, number 3, let's talk about repetition and variety in missions. Now, these are kind of the 2 polar opposite words, right? So, repetition is a tough one because when you have a game that's going to probably be 8 to 10 hours, and look, at its core, all you can really do is sneak around, you can shoot, you can take people out, stealth-wise, and you can drive, right? And I mean, that's something that, again, really all 3 of these games have had to fight through and really any game, I mean, you have your basic mechanics, and then you have to kind of flare it up a bit. So, again, I will say, this is where all 3 games, when they wanted to, I think they shined really well. I think some of them did it better than others. I think 2 kind of had flashier missions more often. 1 definitely did, but they were kind of more spaced out. And 3 really went for it too. 3 had some really, really big missions, but they were the only big missions, right? Then all of the stuff stuff to get there was exactly the same. So that's where, when it comes to the old country, and this is a high expectation, but this is really one I feel passionate on. When you're making a game that's 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, however long this game is going to be, okay, I'm totally cool with it. Quality always beats quantity, in my opinion. And how you do that is you don't have us doing the exact same thing over and over. Now, again, like, you can only do so much. There's stealth stuff, there's shooting stuff, but there's set pieces. There's how you kind of move around the environment. There is different environments just in general. So you think about all three of these games, they all have really, really big moments of, say, like the amusement park in 3, or 2 has like that tower bomb and that entire mission. 1, let's say, like the plane, right? When you have to chase the plane. Well, first you have to go through several things. I mean, and steps, right? Like sometimes missions will have steps. You'll have a huge chase scene and then you'll have a gunfight or other way around. So that's something I'm really hoping that they've taken a look at and said, hey, again, these are things that we've always actually done well. We've always had pretty good variety. Not perfect, but they've had good variety. And even 3 had good variety. It was just too stuffed, with a kind of filler content, I would say. So let's get back to every mission. Maybe not every mission needs to have like a set piece, but let's constantly have a rotation. Let's do a driving mission. Let's do a stealth. Let's do a shooting one. Then let's do a big mission. This is going to be a set piece one. Then we'll rinse and repeat again, right? That's kind of what I'm hoping to see in this game. Okay, so the last one I want to talk about is the shooting mechanics. So this is something that I think, again, is kind of individual and unique to each of these Mafia games, and also Mafia as a franchise. They lean in, like I talked about with Cars, right? Now, Cars, you think about how technology has evolved, and how we got closer to like 2025. Like the cars handle differently as we've moved up, but also like the time period has moved up each time. So now that we're going back to the early 1900s, how do cars handle? When it comes to shooting's always been an interesting one, right? Because they've never been afraid to make it feel different. This is not Watch Dogs. This is not Sleeping Dogs. This is not GTA. This is a game that has its own flair, and these characters have different backgrounds, and that kind of, I think, also goes into how well their shooting is. You have the weaponry that's just not very like robust, right? So like you have an issue there. Now again, I think as time has went on, there's been pros and cons to this. I think Mafia 3 is probably the best one, in this way, where, I mean, and Lincoln, he served in Vietnam. But yet again, you also had Vito that served in a war. I don't know if that helped his shooting ability. It didn't really seem to. But, when it comes to Enzo, it's like, all right, well, does that play any part to it? And then you see the early gameplay, or, some of the gameplay they've already shown. It looks a lot, to me, it reminds me of Mafia 1 in terms of the aiming, and then Mafia 3 in terms of kind of how you move from side to side. 3 was the least rigid, and Lincoln in general was the least like just stiff-bodied person that we've ever played before. So hopefully that continues with Enzo. And then when it comes to the aiming, you have the really big reticle that kind of shrinks down if you give it enough time. All of the games kind of have that, but it reminds me the most of 1. Okay, now 1 also had swang, right? But I don't know. I mean, you think about the time period. I don't know like why they did it, right? It could be Tommy. Like Tommy was a taxi driver. He wasn't like a marksman. It could have been the technology at the time. It could have been really them wanting to differentiate themselves and say, hey, no, back in this time period, you're not going to have these perfect aimed shots. So I don't know what the reason was, but when it comes to this game, I think having a mix of 1 and 3 is actually pretty okay. The fact that he's not going to be the most skilled, and to show that off in the gameplay without making us too upset or angry, right? That's an okay thing, and then to also have more of the Mafia 3 where it's like, okay, you can move from side to side a little bit better. It's not perfect. It's never been perfect. It always feels rigid. If an enemy sidesteps you, even in Mafia 3, it's next to impossible you have to really push that analog stick to move your reticle to shoot them. So, I imagine it's not going to deviate too much from it, but we'll see how it goes overall. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.